Hello everyone. Let me know that you can see me and hear me. Actually, I think I'm gonna put it this way. Let's see. Oh no, I can't. Never mind. Okay, I'll give everyone a chance to hop on. Let me know that you can hear me, see me. Give this video a thumbs up, and we will get started on the feminine life blueprint that will make you happier and richer. I wanted to give you guys sort of a blueprint that if I was talking to my younger self, like if I had the opportunity to talk to myself when I was 18, or if Alina was sitting in front of me and Alina was 18, or if my mother Sheena was sitting in front of me and she was 18, this is literally the advice that I would give them. Like, this is the blueprint that I would give them based on my understanding and where I am currently parked. Before we get started, I want to say first and foremost that some of the stuff that I'm going to say may be triggering. You have to remember that triggers are basically emotional wounds that other people can accidentally brush up against. So for example, if you had, a scrape on your arm and I walked past you and accidentally scraped on it and like brushed past it, not realizing that you had, a boo-boo on your hand, you might be like, oh, ow, my hand. And, did I do that intentionally? Obviously not, right? But I didn't know that you had a boo-boo. So that's how our triggers are. It is never someone else's fault, but it always seems that way, that they triggered us. But really, we always had this internal wound. That's why as people start doing their inner work and they start healing, they get less and less and less and less triggered because they don't have those wounds anymore that other people can brush up against. So I want you to, as much as possible, try to listen to this content from the perspective of the healed version of you, which I know, I'm trusting that there's already a part of you that can access that, and I do believe that you do have that. And inside of us, regardless of where we've been, we also do have that part that can step in, and it's the healed version of us, the guide, right? And so listen from there. Do not listen from your inner child. If you listen from your inner child, it won't serve you first and foremost, and you won't actually be able to be useful and helpful to other people as well. Another example of this is that if I was let's say that someone was trying to tell me something that could really, really benefit my children, but I was unwilling to hear it because it was hitting up against my boo-boo. Well, as a mother, that's a big problem, right? Because if I could just listen and learn something, then I could actually help my kids. So a healed person or a healthy person says, wow, yes, I made that mistake. And even though I can't go back and change that, I hear what you're saying. Like, that's good to know, because other people can still be helped from that. Because one of the things I've noticed, the disaster we've created in the Western world, is that in the guise of not upsetting women making really bad decisions for themselves and their children, just so we don't upset them, we make it okay. In fact, we say things like, yeah, girl power and all of this stuff, when they're clearly making really big mistakes. And what that does is that other people around them, other younger women, are thinking, oh, well, okay, not only is that okay to do, it's pretty cool, because that person is getting a lot of appreciation and a lot of excuse me, celebration for doing that. And I apologize, I still have that sore throat. It's kind of like lingering, so I apologize if my voice sounds a little raspy. But a really healed person, a healthy person would say, yes, I made this, decision and I did get myself in trouble. I can see that even though I'm triggered, and I would, despite me having chosen that, I would not want other people to choose that. So those are just signs of healthy thinking. But when we're always triggered and thinking it's someone else shaming us, remember that shame is an internal response. It's an internal wound from you not being aligned to your own decisions. No one else can shame you. This is a very new Western concept. Even 20 years ago, it wasn't a thing. So now you're not allowed to speak up about things, and so because of the older generation that's already made the mistakes, we're like basically pushing the newer generation off the cliff. And I've decided that I'm just gonna speak the truth. It it almost seems unfair to me that my children have access to this information because Irfan and I tell them, and they're surrounded by healthy individuals that are happily married, have those like values, and their brains are wired and nervous systems can accept relationships, but it's almost taboo to talk about it with people who really need it. I can't even tell you the things that I have been learning recently about just people being canceled and losing their entire careers over speaking up about things that other people consider shaming. But it's truth. Not only is it truth, it's scientifically backed truth. But like they're getting like their degrees and things like stripped, and all this stuff is happening, and not getting their papers like published because of what people will perceive as shaming or what that would do. So anyways, that's a whole nother story for another time. Oh, you guys are here. Hi Abby, hi Sophia, hi Maria. Thanks for all the videos, especially the ones about relationships. You made me realize I had to let go and open a door for the better, that I deserved way better, so I'm getting better. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. So what I want to start by saying is that we are Homo sapiens. That is our official name from the animal kingdom, right? Like we are slightly more evolved because we've become conscious. We are aware of our existence, and we ask certain questions of things outside of us, and our ability to communicate, band people together, tell stories, believe in things that we can't see, like God and angels. Because of that consciousness, we are more evolved than the rest of the animal kingdom. However, we are very much still a part of the animal kingdom, as we've been for millions of years. Our DNA still carries that programming. Our nervous system, our brain still carries that programming. We evolved in a certain way, and for millions of years. So 95%, up to 95%, this is what is believed in the evolution anthropology kind of discipline. About 95% of that time where we were considered Homo sapiens, after that point where they draw the line and say, okay, this was Homo sapiens, this was not, we spend time in hunter-gatherer societies. Okay, so that's a long time. It's a long time. And during that time, our brain and our nervous system, like our chemistry, our hormones, the ways of living, the things that we perceive, they developed a certain way. And as I've said before, evolution takes a very long time to start having internal changes. Like every generation has like bloop, like this tiny little like blip of a impact, but it's not like something that you can achieve in one generation, like a big change. So to give you an example, if we started suddenly eating something like, I don't know what example to use, but let's say that we suddenly adapted the elephant diet. I have no idea what the elephant diet is actually, but let's just say we started like eating the entire or let's just say, let's just say that we started eating cardboard for whatever reason, okay? It would take like tens of thousands of years for it to even register as like, okay. Like, first of all, a lot of people would die. So those that were like semi-able to tolerate eating cardboard will then be able to survive long enough to have offspring, and then that generation, then that, like, it takes, like, they say up to 40,000 years for something to start actually creating like biological and like neural changes in you. Like that's a long time, right? Where you could say, okay, this is the way that it's starting to be. So it takes a long time for something to register. So the reason I'm telling you this is, let's say that I decided that I didn't want a relationship and I wasn't gonna have babies, and I was just gonna live by myself on a mountain, okay? I could very much, as a conscious being, decide that. But because my DNA and my programming and my hormones and my natural biological needs are like millions of years old and have needed relationships, you know, my body has been designed to reproduce and be and thrive in relationships, there would be some psychological consequences, psychological and physical consequences of that decision. Am I right to make that decision for myself? Yes. Well, I have that right. Do I have that right? Absolutely. No one is arguing that you don't have the right. Am I capable of doing it? Well, yeah. I mean, I could buy, you know, a cabin in the mountains and like take a whole bunch of books and like go live there and never have to deal with anyone, like go off the grid, and like no one would even know I'm alive. Am I capable of doing it? Yes. So my rights are not in question. My capabilities are not in question. I can do it, right? Where it starts becoming questionable is that knowing my genetic history and the fact that I am a female who belongs to the Homo sapien species, is that the best thing for my mental and physical health? Now we're asking the right question. I think we get so trapped in, well, I have the right to. Yeah, you do. You have the right to do so many things. I was talking to someone that said to me, but I have the right to be upset. I said, absolutely. But do you want to be upset? And you could tell like the wheels were literally turning, right? Of course, I have the right to be violent. Is that the best thing for me to do? Probably not. I have the right to get addicted to drugs. Is that the right thing for me to do? Like, is that healthy? Probably not, right? Like, you have the right to do a lot of things. And I think this is where feminism will get you. It will try to say, well, we are capable and it's our right. Absolutely. I have the right to like stab myself in the face right now. Am I capable of stabbing myself in the face? Absolutely. Should I? You know, when you say should, and like, is that healthy? Is that just because it's my right and I'm capable of it, like, does that make sense for the human body that I'm in? Like, will that be okay for the human body? Like, if I stab myself in the face, is that going to help my hormones? Is that going to help my nervous system? Is that going to make me a healthier, more vibrant person? Like, no, right? So we have to move aside the conversation. Like, sometimes I see people arguing online and I'm like, babes, no one's arguing that you're capable, okay? I'm capable of jumping out of my window, okay? Should I do it? Is that the most healthiest thing for me to do? Okay, now we're asking better questions, okay? So the other thing I want to say is that in the realm of the self-aware Barbie and the basic babe, there is this huge thing of being right or wrong. And the way that the self-aware Barbie and the self-aware Barbie and the basic babe process information, their consciousness is very much like, if this is correct, then this can't be correct. Let me know in the chat if this is making sense, right? It's either this or this. If I'm mad, then I can't be happy, or if he's right, then I must be wrong. So in the $1 million babe stage and higher, this starts shifting, and you very much are able to hold two truths together at the same time and understand that both of these things might have truth to them. And just because you choose this doesn't automatically make this wrong, or but there could be half truths in two concepts or three concepts or four concepts. You stop thinking in these very like rigid ways of like, if this is true, then this can't be true. Okay, let me see if I got this. I try to make notes today so that I can really give you my best and not get, I speak in a very feminine way, so I tend to jump around topic to topic, but I'm trying to keep myself a little bit organized while still honoring my feminine way of speaking. Okay, we talked about that. Okay, so every single Homo sapien to have walked this planet has contributed to the human evolution. Well, the ones that reproduced. The ones that didn't reproduce and died off didn't, but like the ones that kept having offsprings contributed. They added to the future generations, right? And then knowing that, we also know that it's kind of like slow moving, okay? So if I was to make a carbon copy of myself, you know, the first copy would be the most similar to me. And then if that copy made a copy, and then that copy made a copy, and then that copy made a copy. Oh my God, this is such a great example. I can't believe I didn't think of this before. And by the 100th copy, I'm just making that up, that's not scientific, but like, let's say like whatever numbered copy is furthest away from me. Just like if I was playing telephone, when I would start whispering and then that person whispered in the next person's ear, the people closest to me would have received the information that was closest to me, okay? So between parent and child, there isn't that much difference evolutionarily speaking, okay? But between like, you know, let's say, you know, 20 generations, there's going to be bigger differences, okay? It's gonna start becoming clearer. In fact, in IQ tests, the famous one that starts with a W, I believe this was about that famous test, what they found is that what is now considered like, I don't want to use the wrong word, but again, I'm always politically incorrect anyway, so I might as well, like I'm beyond that now. But whatever, like what would be considered like mentally, like, you know, like below normal threshold of functioning. I don't know what is called mentally retarded. I'm not sure what the official language that test uses. What was like many generations ago was considered genius. Meaning like if you put enough generations in the gap, in between, like the gap, we're getting smarter and better, right? But the closest to us, like our children, they're slightly smarter. They're gonna have a little bit more, you know, better access to technology, but they're not that much difference. And this is important. What I want you to understand is that there is a metaphorical, but very much scientific rubber band of how far we can stretch. So currently, if you compared, let's say that I suddenly could time travel, or the cave woman version of us could try time travel, and a cave woman showed up right now, okay, from however million years ago. Biologically speaking, our rubber band platform, like it's not that much of a stretch, okay? Yes, on some level, I can eat Cheetos, let's say, and she might like go into like if we gave her Cheetos, she'd probably, like her body and her nervous system would probably freak out, right? Because that she has not encountered these kind of chemicals and like processed foods. And I might be able to slightly better tolerate Cheetos than she can. So there is that little bit of a stretch of the rubber band, but I can't suddenly like eat, you know, cardboard, right? So there is a point between her DNA and her biology and mine where if I stretch that rubber band too much, it's gonna snap. But because I am growing up in a environment where I have had access to processed foods, and yes, it's definitely causing internal damage and all of that. That's a whole other video, okay? However, I can better tolerate things that are toxic to Homo sapiens than she can, because she hasn't developed some of the grit, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but like she hasn't developed, her nervous system is not equipped for that. However, our rubber band isn't that far apart. So if my lifestyle, and it is very, very, very different to hers, and it is, I mean, in some ways it is, right? I drive, she lives in a cave, she walks everywhere, she probably stands for a lot longer times than I do, right? She's had natural childbirth. I've had hospital assisted. She was fed like the Homo sapien diet. I've eaten very many questionable things. I've taken medications, right? So there are lot of differences. However, how much difference can our nervous systems allow before the rubber band stretches? I feel like this is the best I've ever explained it. So thank you, God, for just channeling this so good through me today. So if we were to look at the difference between her and then 10,000 years later, 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 and then when we come to us, the difference between us and forget 10,000, the difference between us and like 200 years is so vastly different that like between like even any 10,000 year, like we have really collapsed time in the way that we are consciously and technologically advancing. However, remember that rubber band only has so much stretch. So we were, with every 10,000 year that I was giving you the example of, and remember it takes 40,000 years for even a speck to start really changing you. So if we go to 10,000 years, we were just like barely stretching everyone was evolving, everyone was having more technology, right? Like with the horse buggies and then with the car, like it was happening, but it was a way smaller stretch than what we've even done in the last 200 years. Who else finds that a little bit problematic now that I'm putting it in this way? And I know here's the mistake I've been making. Because I've had access to this information for over 20 years, it's become a part of my life to factor it in. Like Irfan and I both, one of the things we connected on, my husband and I, when we were dating for that 2 weeks before he proposed, it was that we both were like immersely obsessed with evolution and anthropology and cultural studies and social sciences and psychology, and we just hit it off on that. And so we both came in with this understanding that the rubber band cannot stretch too far. We can play with the rubber band, we can push the limits to a certain extent, but pushing it too much would make us psychologically and physically ill. It would make us diseased. And because of that, I guess the mistake that I made is I assumed, I don't know why, I think because it was so much a part of my life, that I assumed that everyone knows this. And when I started sharing more of it, I was almost sharing it from a place of like, duh, Mina, common sense, everyone knows this. But then the way you guys have reacted has just blown my mind. And it really, like, journaling on this, having these conversations with my son and my husband, that, oh my God, how is this not common knowledge? And it's very interesting for us because it seems like common knowledge to us. So now that you are thinking about it in this way, do you see why there's all these modern day diseases and modern day ailments that just simply did not exist even 10,000 years ago? or it was such a rare occurrence that we don't even have documentation of it. It just doesn't exist. I mean, just look at the rates of psychological diseases, mental health issues, all of these new disorders that we now have, you know, the whole thing with autism, dietary changes that we've made that are just causing all of these autoimmune issues, psychological just breakdowns and burnout. What has happened is that we stretched the rubber band a little bit too much. And it's every time we stretch it, if you know how rubber bands work, it also loosens it. It changes your standards, and it starts messing with the fabric of who you are, and it starts messing with your center and your grounding. Like, for example, if you have electrolyte issues, like you might have, you know, vertigo and dizziness and these, I get these ear things that my dad used to also get. That's again tied to your salt levels, right? Like it starts psychologically, but then it's like very much physically manifested. So there are consequences to these decisions that we're making. And again, to go back, I know feminism will get you with these rights. It will confuse you and get you to start arguing with your rights and with what you're capable of, okay? The only people that defend what they're capable of are ones that don't believe that they are. They're not convinced themselves, right? And you will not see an intelligent person trying to convince you that they're intelligent, because it doesn't occur to them, they just are. So yes, you have a right to eat cardboard, you can decide that you're going to stop eating, you know, vitamin, or stop taking in vitamin D and stop eating, you know, vitamin C. You have that right, okay? You are also capable. Should you? Will that mess with your rubber band? Like, will that snap your rubber band? Let me see what you guys are saying before I continue. I've just been chatting. It's normal to assume people know the things we do because we see the world through the lens of our own experiences. Yes, Sharina, and I'm making it more of a conscious thing to not assume that just because I know something that everyone knows it. Like I used to have this almost like embarrassing thing that people are gonna be like, duh, Mina, thanks for stating the obvious. You know, I don't know, it was like this weird thing. But like when I have, no, it's not obvious to everyone. And even if you've heard this 1,000 times, maybe the way that I explain it, it hits a little differently. And maybe you needed a reminder. So I just keep telling myself that now. Also, you guys are flooding my DMs and my email inbox since even that video that I did a couple days ago where you're like, no, listen, we need your relationship content. We need it the way you explain it. So I'm like, okay. Yes, Sharina, I love that. She said, when people ask me if I'm a feminist, I say I'm a Sharina-ist. I take what serves me and leave the rest. Oh, I love this because I had started doing the same thing when it came to diet. Because there was, you know, you guys know I used to have an autoimmune disease that I cured, and people are like, well, this diet or that diet, or are you doing this or this, or I thought you were eating this, and why are you? And I said, look, listen, I am eating the Mina diet, okay? So it is very close to the Homo Sapien diet because I don't want my rubber band to stretch and get an autoimmune disease again, God forbid. That was a journey, right? So do I push the envelope? Do I stretch the rubber band sometimes? Yes, I do, okay? I do. I have my occasional treat here and there. But do I stay as close as possible to the Homo Sapien way of eating? Yes, I do. Because, yeah, I know the consequences. Thank you very much at this point. It almost seems like we have to get out of America if we were born here and raised in American culture and only American culture. That's one way, babe, but and I have certainly felt that, but here's the thing, there's no place like America. Any of this stuff, and I think people do take it the wrong way, and then people will start attacking me, and then it'll trigger me, and then I'll like, forget it, like I won't talk about this. But here's the thing, We have to be a part of the solution. The truth is, there's no greater place to live than the United States of America. I believe that. I really do. At this point in my life, I really do have the option to live anywhere on the planet. Like, money is not a problem. I can, buy real estate anywhere. Like, I can literally get up and go and live anywhere. I choose the United States of America. When your house is dirty, you don't burn the house down, you don't ditch it, you clean it. And so this is my little 1% effort in cleaning up my house. I love the United States of America. Really, it's the best place to live, in my humble opinion. And maybe I'm biased. I was born and raised here. We can learn from each other. I don't think that human intelligence, happens in isolation. Evolution definitely shows that we are one of the most intelligent species because we have the ability to band together and share information. So we are meant to share information. We are not meant to hog it. We're not meant to gatekeep it. We are meant to share information. And I'm sorry if information brushes against your wound. I gave you that disclaimer in the beginning, right? But if you want to be a healthier individual, if you want to be an intelligent individual, you must learn to receive information from many different sources. And then, yes, sort through it, truth test it, try it out. And park yourself somewhere. Like, those are going to be your personal values. But we're meant to share information from different people. Like, every single culture on the planet has some beautiful things that we can learn. There's cultures that have mastered the art of eating. There's cultures that have mastered the art of relationships. There's cultures that have mastered the art of longevity, right? Like the blue zones that we talk about, right? So that's the whole point. I don't think that's an accident. I think we can look at those cultures and say, okay, well, I'd like to learn how to live to be 100 and be healthy from the blue zone culture. There are different places, but from those cultures and places, and the people that have the best child rearing practices, and they raise really balanced children. Like, I want to learn from that culture about that. And so, do you hear what I'm saying, right? Like, we're sharing this every little bit of information, but collectively we're putting it into a pot that is then raising the human morphogenetic field for all of us, like for the collective. Love the analogy. Thank you, Mina. You're so welcome, babe. You're so welcome. Okay, let me see what else I want to say. Okay. So I'm introducing a new concept to our community. Irfan and I talk about the rubber band all the time. That is an analogy that my husband came up with. But I don't remember if I've ever I don't believe I've discussed it with you guys. So when we're talking in these live streams and we're connecting, I'm gonna bring up the rubber band. Like, how far are you from your evolutionary rubber band? And do we have room to play? Absolutely, we do. I don't want you to live in fear. We do have room to play, but how much room we have to play in the various directions, that's something you have to learn, right? So can I have an occasional treat of sugar here and there? Well, it depends. Am I sleeping well? Do I work out? Am I walking every day? Do I have close-knit relationships where I'm seen, heard, cherished, acknowledged, adored, right? If everything else is good, me having a little bit of sugar is not gonna throw off my rubber band that much. Yeah? But if I'm not sleeping well, I haven't had real, honest, authentic human connection in weeks or months, God forbid. I haven't worked out in a long time. I'm not taking my evening walks. I'm stressed out. I'm anxious, and I eat sugar. Okay, that same treat will metabolize very different in that one version of me versus the other. So it's not a fair argument to say, well, she has sugar, and at me, well, it depends on so many other factors. If you are throwing all of your Homo sapien needs, all of them out the door, and you're just like, I'm not even gonna honor my species at all, there is going to be dire consequences. One thing that I find really fascinating, and disturbing at the same time is that in a zoo, or if you take your pet to the vet, it's handled the same way. If let's say that that there is an animal and the animal is like shedding its hair, its fur, and it's like aggressive and it's not behaving according to the norm, and it's like according to the expectations of that species, the first thing the zookeepers are gonna do, or the vet, if this is a pet that you take in, is they're gonna say, what how has their environment changed? Like, what are they eating? Did they eat anything different? You know, were their friends removed from their cage? Or they're gonna start looking at their natural environment and how they're currently living. How is it different? However, if you go to the doctor, you know, they're not gonna ask you what you've been eating. Like, it's very rare these days. And the truth of that is because medical professionals, our doctors, are not taught nutrition in medical schools. Only 25% of the medical schools in the United States of America teach nutrition, and it's a 4-hour class. I spent 8 hours doing nothing but studying nutrition because I was fighting for my life with my autoimmune disease. And I started having, after I started my coaching practice, I started having doctors, like kidney specialists, liver this, neuro this, coming as clients. And I was like, wait, aren't you a doctor? Like I'm intimidated. Like, why are you signing up with life coaching for me for health stuff? And because they don't know. They don't know. They're not taught that, right? So if they're not taught that in medical school, if they're taught to look at you at like these individual components and not consider your whole being and how far you've gone from that rubber band in all the different areas of life, can you see that that's a problem? Can you see that that's a problem? So please share this video if you think someone needs it. Give this a thumbs up. I want more people to find this information. I'm ready. I'm ready to like go full force with my stuff. So yes, share it on your socials if you have it. Share it with family and friends. We need to realize that there's so far that we can push the envelope. There's so far that we can pull that rubber band. Is it fun to push it sometimes? Yeah. We're curious beings, right? Like, we want to grow and evolve, but please don't die, right? Like, you can only grow if you're not dead. It's hard to grow when you're dead, okay? So, or sick, or really, really sick. So we don't want to pull it too much. Okay, so let me keep going. So what's happened is that in recent years, we sped up the pulling of that rubber band. So like I said before, if the changes we're having every 10,000 year, well, if you look at it from like my generation to my kids' generation, from my generation to my parents, it's a big difference. The internet and the way that the information is consumed, the phones, we never had so many qualified, professionals hacking our brain at all times. It's never happened that way, okay? It just, you would have to like go to a study or a research center to have someone like manipulate your reality to like do a study. At this point, any technology company can hire like the biggest researchers when it comes to evolution and psychology, and dial up the apps and how images are portrayed. The images are coming so fast at us that we don't even know what subliminal messages are being encoded in them at this point. It's a shit show. They can basically do whatever, and they've got us so addicted to the, like, long story short, girl, the rubber band has snapped. Like, some of us are like hanging on by a thread, okay? That's what's happened basically. And in this beautiful prosperous, I'm messing it up, abundant nation, the United States of America, where you would think that we would be the healthiest people on the planet, we'd be the most loved, the most adored, the most romantic, the most in every category, we're the most sick. We're like psychologically, like, we have such a high rate of depression, the suicide rate, all of these like disorders that we're having to come up with, like, new names for disorders and all of these issues. I don't know why I'm wanting to say this. This is total random story. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm sharing this. So I have had this secret for a really long time that I never shared with anyone, except Irfan. I can't believe I'm sharing this. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. So I've always been really disgusted and scared of anything with like small close holes in it. I had no idea that this was a thing or this was a disorder, and I would always just feel very disgusted. Like I could never eat anything that had like small tiny holes on it, or just this disgust reaction and fear and disgust. So when I married Irfan, he was showing me something, and I did this. And he was looking at me like, what happened? And so he was like the only person that knew about this. So I was like, I don't like it when there's groupings of small holes together. It creeps me out. Oh my God. So Irfan's family came to visit, and so we all went to lunch, to brunch, and all of most of his family is doctors, and there's some lawyers in there as well. But his cousin, who's a doctor, she was there with her two siblings, and I'm there, and her sister shows her, who's a dentist, shows her this thing and says, look, and she's like, oh yeah, oh. And I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, we have this thing called, and then they set this name where we're like really disgusted and afraid of like small holes, or like, and I was like, that's a freaking disorder? And I'm like, she's like, yeah, she told me the name. And I'm like, Sarah, I have it. I thought there was something wrong with me my entire life. No one other than your cousin knows about it. Like Irfan's the only one. And I have been so embarrassed of this. She's like, no, it's a disorder. It's an actual thing. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel so seen and heard. But how weird is that? So like we have all of these like really weird, by the way, there's an evolutionary thing for that, but I looked it up. But there's all these like weird disorders now, right? And I just feel so seen and heard, and like, oh, I'm not crazy. That is an actual thing. So it was a whole thing at brunch that day. I don't know what got me into saying that, but oh my God, you guys know about it? Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce it. Trypophobia. Yeah. So the thing that was really interesting is that these three siblings all have it. So I was like, is it genetic? Because no one else in my family has it. In fact, I didn't even tell anyone because they'd probably think I was like, crazy. I mean, they probably already think I'm crazy, but like I never even shared it with anyone. So I felt so heard and seen that day. My sister has it. Yep, I have it. Yeah. It's just a huge disgust and fear factor. Anyways, I'll keep moving. Okay. So women. Okay. As women, as a collective, this is the most educated we've ever been. This is the most rights we've ever had. And I get it that in some countries, in some parts of the world, they don't. But I'm talking about collectively as a whole, girl. Okay? This is the most access we've had to voting, bank accounts, cars, the whole thing, the right to make our own decisions. We are highly evolved, right? Like we have progressed femininity to a whole nother level, and thank God, like that was a necessary thing. Why is it then, doesn't it bother you that more women now than ever are on antidepressants, are unhappy, are abusing alcohol? Like there's a whole thing now, if you see even on social media, with like moms normalizing drinking a glass of wine every evening. Like it's full-blown alcoholism that's like normalized. So all of this stuff happening. And here's the interesting thing. Here's the argument that the grid, the powers that be, have planted in your brain, because I see women doing this. So the minute I say this, here's what your brain is going to do. That's why I wanted you to listen, not with your wounds, but listen with both your right and left brain, not just your left, because here's what it does. I hear this argument all the time. Well, it was always there. We're just getting diagnosed more. Lie. That is a lie. You are lying. You have been lied to. That is a lie. Okay? It's not true. I have this happen in the Pakistani community as well. When we talk about how successful our marriages are, immediately people attack us saying, well, they're not successful. It's just because they're not allowed to get a divorce. Not true. Not true. Okay? That's a lie. So what they're coming up with these faulty arguments, and they're hitting against certain fears in you to try to keep you from looking at places that you can actually learn from. You're being lied to, babe. You're being lied to. You've been programmed to think those things. When I state that there's a lot less mental illness in in Asian communities, instantly people say, oh, well, it's misdiagnosis because it's taboo. That's not true. It's not true. And here's the thing. Keeping it taboo has helped us. It has helped us. Please listen carefully, okay? Because I know people go into attacking. People want to defend mental illness as if like they want to keep it. But the truth is that there is a reason that certain cultures kept certain things taboo. Because what it did in that is that people who truly had it. It wasn't fashionable. It wasn't something that people were just like throwing around and using carelessly. It wasn't a grid that was fashionable or trending to plug into. Like mental illness has almost become a trend now. Do some people actually have it? 1000%. Are some people like plugging into that and telling that story and then therefore creating it for themselves? 1000%. Yes. Some people are creating mental illness in themselves. One, by pulling the rubber band too far. So I think that mental illness it's a real thing, but it's not as widespread as we're fueling the fire in a way. So there was a reason that Asian cultures, Eastern cultures made it taboo, because they didn't want it to become a fashion. They didn't want people using it as an excuse to check out of life, to not parent properly, to not show up in their relationships, to not do their job. It's not considered a badge of honor in my culture. So when someone has a mental illness, you know they really have it. You know they really have it. It's believable if you can see it. Now, even the definition in the Western world of what actual mental illness is, everyone is an armchair, therapist now or a psychologist now. So anyone can throw around like, I have this, she has this, he's a narcissist. We can all just throw around and just make society just look way sicker than it is. And therefore now we're plugging into a grid and making it sicker. So I know that Western people have been conditioned to not think about, like, they don't want to be told the truth. I don't care if I get canceled. That's the thing. I'm good. Like, I'm good. Like, I've got my family, I've got my wealth, like, I've got my relationship. I have to make a stand at this point that I'm going to tell the truth. So if you want to cancel me, you can cancel me. It's okay. But at least 5 people heard this. Okay. My 18-year-old has been having this discussion with me since he was 13. He's like, Mom, it's like cool to be mentally ill now. And you almost feel left out if you don't have, if you don't hate your parents and you're not cutting yourself in school and you're like not disturbed. He's like, it's awkward being like the only normal person. Like, should I make shit up? Like, this is literally the conversation that we had. We've been having since he was 13. So it's a grid. Leave it for the people that really have it. Just because other people have it doesn't mean we all have to have it. Some people should be healthy. We need some people in society to remain normal and healthy and thrive and be successful. It's an important grid to have. Okay? So, okay, let me see what else. So, one of the things that I was reading in this book, I have recommended this book to you guys. I love this. When I really, really love a book, I will get the paper copy, the Kindle version, and the Audible. This is one of those books. I have all 3. I've got the paperback, I've got the Kindle, and I've got the Audible. And she talks about in here how oh my God, it was just sickening. Like, I was sick to my stomach when she was talking about how Hugh Hefner was like one of like the ones really going for like birth control and like abortion laws, and it was just disturbing. It was so disturbing because it's like, why would like a Playboy be invested in like women's like issues, right? Unless they're like severely benefiting from it, like massively benefiting. Like, it was just disturbing. Okay, it was so disturbing. And luckily, you know, a lot of the things that are happening in the Western world, our culture, our like the religion already prevents all of that. So I'm so glad the things that I used to consider so backward about my culture are just so beautiful about my culture. And now like there's scientific proof, and that's what I want to bring. Because the thing is, here's what one of my students was saying to me, and this was on Zoom in one of my courses. She was saying, Mina, I've heard everything that you're saying at church, but I dismissed it because our pastors, you know, they don't come with the science, or at least, you know, from when she's talking about, she's like, they just tell you it's a sin. They just tell you, you know, it's wrong, or like God will punish you. And she's like, it makes you feel oppressed, right? Like, it makes you feel like something's wrong with your, like, she was saying that if they had come at me the way that you're saying it, with like science, and saying, hey, yes, our religion also says this, but here's the reason why. Here's how it doesn't benefit you. Here's the harms of it. It makes more sense. So I hope that that is what I'm adding to the conversation. In fact, you guys won't believe this. I've had some of the world's biggest religious organizations reach out to me, which I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God. I was like, oh my God, I have a potty mouth. I curse so much. And like the Jewish Federation and like the Hindu temples and all of these people are like listening to me, and they send me messages saying, we really love what you're doing. You're basically telling them all the things that women need to hear in a non-religious way, because the women that have like felt oppressed by religion have like thrown the baby out with the bathwater, and they're now not getting this important information. And thank you for delivering it in this way. And I was like, first of all, I was kind of like, oh shit, they heard me curse. And then they're like still reaching out to me. I'm so embarrassed. But then I'm like, you know what? That's just who I am. They see what I'm doing, okay? They see that I need to adapt the language of my ideal audience. And, you know, that's another thing. You have to understand marketing. And some religions have lost that, because if I come at you with like this very like religious language, or this very like super scientific, like super academic language, there's already a disconnect. I'm already kind of like talking down at you, right? I'm up here and I'm super professional and academic and religious, and I'm better than you, and there you are. There's gonna be a disconnect. We're not really going to be able to connect on a human to human level. But if you see me as some crazy chick, you know, born in a very conservative culture and religion, and you hear me dropping the F-bomb and like, you know, bringing my Chicago ghetto, right? It makes you more likely to listen, right? Like, I'm sure some of my younger audience are seeing me as like that old, you know, that old mom figure that like tries to be cool, you know, but they're listening. They're listening. So I think that these religious organizations, if you guys are watching, thank you so much for overlooking all of that stuff. I don't know why that triggered me when they started emailing me. I'm like, oh my God, are these people watching me? I'm embarrassed. I've had so many clients come and say, oh, you know, the Hindu temple in Kauai recommended your videos to us, or the Jewish this, and this. I'm like, oh my God, they're recommending my like potty mouth to you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So as women, our rubber band, like our ideal has been, we have evolved to want human connection. We have evolved to want to be in relationships, thrive in relationships. We have evolved to have babies, carry babies, go through childbirth. And a lot of these things, of course, are difficult. They expand us, they grow us, but they're very much natural to how we have evolved. Again, if we're going to the $1 million babe, is it right or wrong? The feminists will get you by, well, it's wrong for me to just be looked at. Okay, right or wrong, or your human DNA, right? So do you have the right to not have children? Absolutely. Are you capable of not having kids? Absolutely. Is that going to help your DNA thrive? Okay? I don't want to make that decision for you, but if you look at the fact that more and more women are, choosing out of relationships, not having babies, and then after a certain age, having a lot of mental and psychological issues and being put on medications and, abusing alcohol and having issues. I'm not diagnosing anyone. I'm not qualified to do that. I'm going to, based on my expertise, based on my personal experience, based on the knowledge that I have, make an educated guess at best. That's what I can do. I can make an educated guess that some of these things are the consequences of going against our DNA, right? Am I saying that we should just force every woman to get married and have kids? Of course not. But we have to start understanding that our decisions have consequences, and then how do we work through them? So for example, I know that if I eat sugar, that there's consequences of that to my body. Do I sometimes have sugar? Yes. What do I do after that? Well, I might walk an extra round that evening when we go for our evening walk. I might do a couple extra sets in the in my gym the next day. I might spend 5 extra minutes sitting in the sauna, right? So I'm aware of the consequences, and then I'm mitigating risk. I'm like, okay, like I'm deciding on the trade-offs, and is it worth to me? When we talk about choice for women, it's not really a choice if it lacks education. Do you hear what I'm saying? Right? Like if we give someone the choice to jump off of the cliff, they need to know that it might result in death or like serious injury. Then it's a real choice. So in my humble opinion, that is my definition of choice, that I want to know the consequences of the choice that I make. Then it's a true choice. That's why I think when we say, with children and consent and choice, well, children don't really often understand the full consequences of their choices, right? So is it really a choice? And from my humble definition of choice, it's not really a choice unless we really understand the consequences of it. And I understand that I'm really putting myself on the line here by even talking about these things, knowing what has happened to some of my colleagues and people when they did speak about these things. But I'm the mom that wants to give you the same advice that I would give my children. That is my legacy. That is me being in my integrity. Something about telling Alina something else and lying to you doesn't sit right with my mom genes. Not those kind of mom genes. That was funny. But my momness, my mothering, my nurturing side. I don't know what to call it. You get it. We call it mamta in my culture. My natural instincts to mother would be mamta. So my mamta doesn't allow me to tell my children one thing and tell you something different. So for example, if my daughter came to me and she said, Mom, is this the right color on my skin tone? Should I wear this color? We have these kind of conversations. So I'm giving you a real life example. And I would say, well, babe, you're a cool tone and that's warm tone. You can wear it, but then, it's going to have this and this effect on your skin tone. But if you came to me and I'm like, yeah, girl, it looks cute, slay. I find that problematic. I have done that sometimes. It doesn't sit right with me. We have that in our DNA. We don't want to upset people. We are the tend to be, what is it called? The gene to tend and befriend. We have evolved, women have evolved because we were kind of the more vulnerable gender because of childbearing and our lack of physical strength. We didn't want to upset people in our tribe that were, responsible for, helping us, especially when we're pregnant and we have young offspring. So we evolved to not steer the pot, not tell people the truth, just be kind and nice and just, keep the peace. I feel like at this point, that's a rubber band I'm willing to stretch. So you see, sometimes I do stretch it, right? I'm aware of the consequences of that. Will some people get mad at me? Yes. Do some people think I'm very blunt and I'm very rude and I'm very upfront and I'm a bitch? Like, do some people think that? Yes. Yes. A lot of people probably think that. I've been called all kinds of things. People say my delivery isn't good, my tone is off, I can be harsh, I'm too blunt. I'm sorry, I'm working on it. Part of it is just how I am. Part of it is I'm a human design projector, that whole thing. We come across as harsher than we are. I wouldn't take that risk going against my DNA, pulling that rubber band if I didn't love you. If I was like, fuck you, sure, yeah, that color looks great on you. Sure, you know, go ahead, do that. Like, if I didn't give a fuck, I wouldn't take the risk of pulling that rubber band for you, right? I tell my kids something different and I would just put up a facade with you. I would just say, girl, yeah, have 5 different babies from 5, do you, you know? Sure, that color looks good at you. No, you're not fat. Sure, no, you're not unhealthy. Like, I could do that all day long, and actually it would be very much in line with my DNA to do so. So in this way, I'm stretching that's why it feels, that's why women have so much trouble, you know, being here in the public and saying this stuff. Like, it takes a lot. We're going against our DNA. It is so much easier to lie as a woman. It is so much easier to just lie and say, girl, you look great, you look awesome, that color works on you. No, he's not a narcissist. Yes, I'm sure he loves you. No, he's not cheating on you. No, you're not overweight. You know, it's so much easier to come here and just lie to your face, because that's how we've evolved. We don't want to stir the pot. And then to the people that we can trust, we're like, actually, okay, this is the actual truth. That's why this kind of information was passed down mother to daughter, sister to sister, aunt to niece, right? It was very much kept within the bloodline. But now we have a problem. We have a couple generations that evolved very quickly, highly masculinized, put in the workplace, you know, forced to act like men and behave like men, and lost their femininity, and we lost touch. And so the people that do have it, we're sitting there going, do we just let the fucking world burn and go to shit and just save our people and our kids? Or do we risk putting ourselves out there and say the truth? So one conversation that I've had several times with Armaan, my oldest son, I've had this with him years ago, and he was like, wow, I did not know that about you. And then we recently were having that conversation again. It came up where I don't know how it came up, but we were talking about how if I could have shared this message, created my courses, written my books, all of that, without having anyone know anything about me, who I am, without showing my face, that would have been my first preference. And he was very confused. He's like, really? He's like, I would think that people want to be famous, they want to be known. I'm like, hell no. I have sabotaged my channel so many times to try to keep myself small, because I am an extremely, this might shock you, but I'm an extremely introverted person, and I'm extremely private. My dad used to tell me that I barely used to speak in my childhood. Like, I was a very quiet, observant child. I would only speak if I noticed something that someone was doing was harming them and they needed help. So my natural personality is very introverted and very quiet. What I'm doing, like, there is a cause. I'm a rebel with a cause. If I could have delivered this information and no one knew who I was, never saw my face, didn't know my name, that would have been ideal. In fact, recently this conversation was brought up again because I was saying to my son, I regret not making, this wasn't a thing back then when I started YouTube. I regret putting my face out there. I regret, like, that's just not me. I don't want to be famous. That's not the point of any of this. If you guys remember, the reason I wanted to be wealthy was so I could like read books all day and not speak to another human being again. Like, honestly, to go back to what my dad said, the only reason I would open my mouth is if someone needed help. And it just so happened that now I'm stuck in this grid where a lot of someone's need fucking help. People are drowning and I can't unsee it. So I was having a conversation with one of my students. Thank you, babe. I love you. We were having this DM conversation back and forth, as I've been having with a lot of my really, really just close students of mine, you know, just all in with my work. And she was saying, Mina, I respect whatever decision that you make for yourself. However, I need you to hear my side. I need you to hear what this work has done for me. What kind of paradigms it's open, what kind of permission it's given. And I'm like, damn it, you guys, stop it. Every time she was sending me this message while I was thinking, you know what, I'm just gonna retire. Like, I'm done, I'm gonna retire. And here she is sending me audio message after audio message saying, because as dad said, I only open my mouth when someone needs help. And now she's like, I respect your decision. However, I need your help. We need your help. And I'm like, oh. So my point of sharing this was never to become famous, from rich off of it. When I started my company after our net worth was already $2 million. We were already featured on the Dave Ramsey show. Like, my husband did that with his sole income while I was a stay-at-home mom. So I didn't do it for the money. I didn't do it for the fame. God knows that. I hate being in the public eye. That is just so not me. I didn't do it for any sort of outward thing. That's the part of it I actually hate. If there's people out there that need my help, I have trouble keeping my mouth shut is the biggest problem with me. That's the problem. That's why I did it. So I think I'm gonna have to do this in 2 parts because I haven't even gotten to the stuff I was actually, that was the intro. Mina, you freaking talk too much. That was the freaking intro. Let me just tap. This is gonna be in parts, unless you guys want me to keep going. Let me see what you're saying. That was the damn intro, girl. I haven't even gotten to the thing I wanted to tell you. Oh, hi, thank you, Namisha. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you, babe. Respect your strength to speak up in this way. Thank you, thank you. I love you. I share a lot of Mina's teachings anonymously. I don't want any static. Yeah, I know people that have lost their entire careers over saying, here's why I figured out why I kind of have gotten away with it. Okay? Do I want to go there? Let's just fucking go there. I think the thing that has helped me is because I bring culture and religion into it here and there. I think that the people who go after the people that speak up, here's the thing, most of the people that have spoken up about this and have had a lot of backlash, I noticed something about them. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this publicly. I noticed they were all white. And I think it's easier to attack white people because it's not as touchy. So when they say it, you attack them and you can like destroy their career. I think, this is my 2 cents, let me know what you think. I think it would be harder for these institutions, these people, these powers that be, to come after me because I could play this is my religion, this is my culture card. This is just my 2 cents. I can't believe I just said this publicly. But it's somewhat a little bit touchier to go after women of color, if you know what I mean. It's like gonna be like, hey, I'm just talking about my culture. Did you say my culture was wrong? Right? I could kind of do that. I think that's why I've been a little under the radar, because I did notice that you are way more likely to be attacked and canceled and shut down if you are white, unfortunately. But a lot of the people that have done the actual research part and have the scientific part, like I can sit here and tell you the cultural, the scientific, the cultural, the spiritual, the part of it that I've actually physically seen from my eyes and have like so much history with, right? Because our culture has a lot of history with that. I can sit here and tell you that, but I think Western people need science. And these were the people that came with the science, but because they were white and it's easier to attack white people, because they can't play that card, they got attacked and they got scared. And a lot of them just went to like safer things because they got to feed their families. Like, I don't blame them. So, Mina, your content literally saved my life. You are a gift and a blessing to me and women worldwide. Thank you, babe. Thank you. Black women are also attacked to by other black people. Yeah, and the only people that have even like spoken up like about like not attacked me, but like kinda have been like some kind of a hyphenated Pakistani person, which is really funny. It's like British Pakistani or American Pakistani. And I'm like, are you sure that's not the Western feminist part of you speaking? Because that's not true in Pakistan. The thing that makes me a little bit unique than other hyphenated Pakistanis, let me just be honest with you guys, is if you are British Pakistani or American Pakistani, you were born and raised here. My situation is a little bit unique. I have spent probably about a third of my like childhood in actually living in Pakistan. So I was born and raised here in the United States, but like taken back enough times and spent a whole year there even, and enough summers that if you calculated the time, about a third of my childhood was spent in Pakistan. So I'm able to see the best in both of the cultures, take it and not have any attachment to either culture. Meaning I'm not biased towards Pakistani culture or like biased towards America. Like I'm very balanced. I want you to win. I want relationships to win. I want you to be happy. It doesn't matter to me that I show my culture in the best of light or I show American I don't care, because the point of culture is to give you the best human experience that you can have. I don't give a damn. Like, I'm not one of those moms that I'm gonna be like to my children that you have to be Pakistani in this way because what will people say, or it's gonna make me look bad, or no, I don't give a damn. Okay, I want my kids to be happy and thriving. That's important to me. So I will give them the evolution, the science, the spiritual, the Pakistani stuff, the Indian stuff, the Japanese stuff, the African American. Like, I will give them the thing from whatever I need to pull from so that they can make the best decision. I don't give a damn about the culture itself. Okay, I don't. There are a lot of things that are very much broken with the Pakistani culture, starting with the freaking government. Don't get me started, okay? So corrupt, so awful, okay? That's why when people in the US complain about the American government, which isn't perfect either, but I'm like, it's a lot better than what I've seen in other places, right? I have an appreciation for it. But the one thing Pakistani people have freaking nailed down is relationships, okay? Does this mean 100% of Pakistani relationships are thriving? Of course not. They're freaking human, but the majority of them are. And the people that come at me and say, oh, that's only because they're not allowed to get a divorce and it's only because they're secretly unhappy. No, that is not true, okay? First of all, if you are a Western person, I don't even trust your gauge. I'm sorry, I love you, but I don't trust the measurement of success that you're even using. Okay, because most Western people don't know what a successful relationship is supposed to even look like. So you can't sit over here and be judging their oppression or their relationships because the measurement that you're even using is broken. So as someone who has spent time in that culture, is not attached overly to either culture and just wants to take the best from the buffet of life, I'm telling you, they're on to something. In fact, let me tell you guys something else. Recently, this was about 3 days ago, I started seeing this girl pop up in my feed, on my YouTube feed. And her name was a very obvious Pakistani name. And I'm like, who's this chick? Is she Pakistani? So I click on it and she's a psychologist and she's talking about same stuff I'm talking about, armed with all of the freaking science and the cultural background, right? I'm like, who is this? Like, I agree with her on like 90% of things. I've never agreed with anyone on 100% of things. That's just human nature, right? Because we all have our opinions. But 90% of what this woman was saying, I'm like, yes, that's so true. I read that study. I know that. Yes, that's exactly what I learned, right? And she's got that cultural background. And I watched like 3 videos, and the 3rd video, she said she was Pakistani. I'm like, of course, because I used to joke with Irfan that Pakistanis are gonna save the world from relationship turmoil, like from what's happening. And right now, the biggest person trending in the relationship space also happens to be freaking Pakistani, of course. Because here's why. Pakistani people really, they haven't gotten really far away from evolution. They live their life. Their rubber band isn't very stretched. Let me say it this way, okay? Their rubber band isn't too stretched out. And when you add to that their Eastern cultural values, which are very close to the evolutionary thing, and then the fact that Pakistani people are very, very, very educated, and now they're coming out. Up until my mom's generation, or even before that, it was very much like just stay within the Pakistani community, like just stay away from everyone else. You notice Pakistani families don't really mingle a lot with everyone else. Well, this new generation is coming along, me and I'm pretty sure she's a lot younger than me, and they're like, oh my God, there's a shit show out here. We have the answers. We also have the science. We have the cultural background. We've seen what healthy relationships looks like. Do I keep my mouth shut or speak up? And more people are speaking up. Here's what I want you to know. Her name is Sadia Khan, by the way. Search her up. She's, I believe she's British Pakistani living in Dubai. She's a psychologist. And you'll notice the consistency in the things that I teach, in the cultural stuff, in the scientific stuff, because when you put the science through our cultural lens, there is the relationship answer. Pakistani people are going to save relationships, I'm telling you, because we actually have a lot of experience seeing how they're supposed to be. We're not swayed so much by the romantic notions of what they're supposed. It's changing. We're getting westernized, but up until now. So if you guys don't know who Sadia Khan is, girl, go and find her. You are welcome. And I'm so glad. I'm going to reach out to her. If anyone knows, reach out to her. I'm going to Dubai in October anyway, so she's in Dubai. I'm going to see if we can do a collab or something. You will see the immediate consistency, okay? I found her about 3 days ago, and I'm just hooked. I'm just like, she gets it. Why does she get it? It's because she studied the same evolution psychology stuff, and then she understands the Pakistani culture. If you mix that, that's the formula for a healthy relationship. So stop shutting it down. So what would I say to my daughter if, yes, I will go ahead and write it out for you. I understand that with unique names. Now, anytime I recommend people, please be mindful that if I'm recommending someone, it doesn't mean I agree with 100% what they say. I used to recommend when I first started a lot of books and a lot of people, and then I stopped. And the reason that I stopped is because people would email saying, you recommended this person and they said this and this and this, 5 years ago in this post. And I'm like, oh, just because I agree with this one thing this message doesn't mean I promote everything that they've ever said in their life. So sometimes people don't know how to take information. So then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna stop recommending books and people. You go find yourself. So now I'm like feeling more confident where I'm just doing it, and I'm just gonna tell you guys that just because someone recommends someone doesn't mean they agree with everything that they say. I love seeing the difference between you two. She's not into manifestation because she's a very devout Muslim. She's not into astrology. She's very Pakistani, understands the culture just as well as I do, but she is closer to the Pakistani roots in the sense that she is Muslim. And I don't particularly follow any one religion. I pull from all the religions. I honor all the religions. I love all the religions. I also see a lot of problems with religions. So I am more spiritual. But if you want a better representation of Pakistani, a Pakistani woman, she is a better version of me, because she will give you the truest version of what a Pakistani woman is in some ways. In some ways, maybe not, like the marriage part and the kids part, maybe not. But you will hear her, you know, praising God and saying inshallah, mashallah, which I also do. You can't take that out once you have it. So she's a very devout Muslim, and that's why she's not going to practice manifestation. Even though the Quran is full of manifestation, I think, you know, they're afraid of the new age stuff because they don't understand all of it. So I understand that. So Sadia is any Pakistani woman, any balanced Pakistani woman will be very savage as well. She's going to be very sweet. I'm telling you, there's a blueprint. The blueprint isn't necessarily Pakistani. Let me explain this. We just see it in Pakistani people. The blueprint comes from evolution. Pakistani people haven't evolved out of it yet. We haven't been as modernized. Does that make sense? So it's not necessarily the Pakistani part as it is the fact that they're following the evolution blueprint and haven't evolved out of it. Yes, on Instagram, she's Sadia Psychology. Brilliant, brilliant woman. The reason I'm so excited to bring her to you is because this is what I see. This is what I'm surrounded by. This is how Pakistani people are. Deeply intelligent. The women are deeply feminine, so grounded. Men and women so balanced. Did I say intelligent? Just so intelligent and just open hearts. Just so balanced, so harmonious. And because I see these people in my real life, I can't bring them to you. They're not online. They're not talking about this stuff. So the fact that I find this woman, I'm like, now I can show them that I'm just not just some one random person trying to, you know, over glamorize my culture. I'm not attached to the culture in any way. I was born and raised here, like I said, right? Do you see that anytime you meet a healthy Pakistani, like balanced person, you're gonna see a template. You're gonna see a template. It's actually the evolution template. They just haven't evolved out of it. You used to be like that too, but you got conditioned out of it. That's it. Okay. So if I was, actually, I might have to do a part 2. I feel like the real breadth of what I was gonna get in, I can't even get in right now. Or should I just quickly tell you the blueprint? Let me know. I can't believe you mentioned her. I watch her almost daily. I'm so glad. I'm so glad because she is such a positive representation of, if you are a Pakistani girl or a Pakistani guy watching this, okay, and you are a balanced person that understands our culture and understands it and understands the science well enough to explain it. I know it's a lot to put ourselves out there. I know typically our culture has taught us to turn the other eye, ignore, stay within our own groups. Everyone else is just, you know, messed up, let it be, right? Have the courage to put yourself out there, because imagine it was me and now there's Sadia, and let's say a third person showed up and a fourth person showed up that understood this stuff. That's not just like randomly making up weird femininity performance stuff. What would it do to the planet? We should promote people like that when we find them. She came in my, like she showed up and I'm like, who is this? Is she Pakistani? And then I didn't even click on it. And then a couple times, like, who is this chick? Click. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. Thank you, God. Right? This actually gives my work more credibility, honestly. It really does. Because I'm like, look, another Pakistani woman saying the same stuff. Look at her embodiment. Look at how intelligent she is. Look at how feminine she is. Look, she gets her shit, okay? So I'm telling you, there's a blueprint. So here's the blueprint. So if 18-year-old Mina was sitting in front of me, or 18-year-old Alina was sitting in front of me, I would say, babe, first and foremost, understand your female DNA, your female biology, and your female hormones, and understand the rubber band of them. Yes, you have the right and the capability to go against these things. But can you play within a healthy range of the rubber band? If you pull too hard, there's a loosening of the rubber band. There's a there is a point of no return even where it snaps. Okay, so for example, if the 18-year-old version of Mina chose to ignore relationships because at that time I was traumatized from the sexual abuse, I was only activated in the part of my brain that values American style success, right? Doesn't value relationships because of the trauma, and I could have stretched it until 30, maybe even 35. At what point would the psychological problems actually become way worse than just from the trauma? Because now I didn't use my body in the way that it was designed to use. And I didn't use my hormones in the way that they were designed to be used, right? So can you see that at some point a breakdown starts happening with the rubber band? There is a breakdown that starts happening. And so what I would say is that if you are a Western girl being raised in the West, understand that you may have been conditioned to not be wired for a relationship. So assignment number 1, would someone put that in the chat? Assignment number 1 would be to test and see, am I wired for relationships? Okay, so when you are wired for relationships, you get joy out of nurturing. Okay, you get joy out of perceiving other people's needs that are close to you, that you love, and meeting them. It doesn't deplete you. It comes from the overflow of your femininity. You enjoy that. It brings you something. It fills you up. Versus if you are not wired for relationships, you tend to nurture in a wounded way where it's like people pleasing. Like you do it because you're mining from something. You want to get something from the other people, and therefore you feel depleted. You feel unmet. So same activity, one makes you feel depleted and like used and resentful because you gave something with the intention of getting something back. It was from a place of depletion and not from a place of overflow. Versus in the other one, it's coming from a place of your overflow and your femininity. Same thing, different, you metabolize it very differently inside of you, for lack of a better word. So test, thank you, babe, for writing that. Test for relationship wiring. If you are not wired for relationships and you have trauma in your past, what I would advise you to do is seek help. Now, the other reason I'm really highly recommending Sadhya is because you guys know that my work starts at the self-aware Barbie and takes you, because I'm a coach. I'm not qualified to do therapy. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist, right? So I take people at a certain level and make them better, make them more elite. Well, Sadhya has the background and the education to actually take the people that are really wounded and trauma, the basic babe stage or the basic boy stage. She works a lot with men as well, she said, I believe, and actually help them. That's her expertise. So if you want similar content to mine, but you're like, I need a little bit more help. I want, I believe she's still doing one-on-one sessions even. With my audience size, I'm unable to do that. She's still doing that. So you can go on Instagram, you can sign up with her. She doesn't even know I exist, by the way, I think. So this isn't like some, affiliation or anything. I just think that she can honestly help you in a way that it's beyond my expertise. It's beyond my level, right? So you want to start there, because when you start learning that there's parts of your psyche that are wounded in that way and you need a little bit extra support, then you can actually start opening yourself up for healthy relationships. So my second part of my advice to the 18-year-old Mina or to Alina would be that your rubber band, your female rubber band, has some limitations that are time bound, and men have their own too, but for women, we're women, so we got to worry about the female one, like let men be men, right? So my thing was, I used to be so afraid to say this, and now all of a sudden I'm like, why was I so afraid to say this? I did not want to have children past 30. So my game plan, because in your as a teenager and in your 20s, early 20s, is when your eggs are the healthiest. Like, this is just a scientific fact. I know people get in a lot of trouble for saying this because women feel traumatized or triggered, but the thing is, trigger is something that's an emotional wound. It's coming from inside. So this is not to say that you can't have babies in your 40s or 50s even. Of course you can. But knowing my female rubber band, because of my background and what I had studied, I knew that if I wanted to have, give my babies the best chance and give my hormones and my body the best chance, I wanted to have my children under 30. Life didn't work out that way. I actually had Alina at 33. I was freaking the F out, just so you know. Okay? Because I had Ayan in 2010 when I was 29. Okay? So I was like, yes, made it. And of course I was very happy to have another boy, but I wanted to desperately have a daughter. You guys have no idea. I mean, I wanted a boy and a girl, but so I was like, okay, I got another boy. I gotta like crank out another baby. Like, I gotta do this like somehow, right? I was gonna turn 30 that year. So I had some health issues. I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, moved to Houston. Life happened, so I understand. But are you noticing that I wasn't triggered. I was very realistic with my body and my ovaries and my eggs, right? Like, I'm like, I want to give my babies the best chance possible. And then I was like afraid to share this with you guys because women get so freaking triggered because they want to lie to themselves and pretend like these rubber bands don't exist. Stop lying, right? Okay, so then we thought about it, and both Irfan and I were like, we will be like lacking something in our life if we don't get to have a daughter. Like, we both desperately just wanted a daughter. So we were like, you know what? We will try 2 more times. And I'm like, we got to try fast because I don't want to be like, 35 would have killed me. Like, I had a friend that had children after 35, and the way that her pregnancy was even treated was it was disturbing to me. But anyway, so luckily we lucked out. We got the girl, that first time. But I'm just telling you that I'm knowing what I know. I wouldn't have been like, let me build out a long, drawn out career first, and then mess up that rubber band, and then be really desperate and trying to work with whatever was left over in my late 30s, right? Like, I have friends that have had kids even in their 40s. So I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that I tend to be very practical. I don't get triggered by these things. I've learned to work within my plane of existence. And of course, I can manifest stuff, but I have to work within the human paradigm of DNA and evolution and human age. So my advice for my daughter would be to learn the feminine and the relationship skills first, set your foundation, okay, and plan it out where the thing that makes most sense first is plugged in first. So let me say this another way. And I kind of learned this from my first mentor ever, Dr. Laura. She didn't used to say this in quite the same words, but this is what I received from her. And I started following her when I was like 20 or 21. Luckily, I got her early in my life. And I really loved her because she's American, but her beliefs are very much in line with my Pakistani culture and roots. I was like, oh, okay, well, other people believe this too, right? So I was following Dr. Laura, and here's what I got out of what she was saying. What I heard her saying, even though she didn't use these words, was, you can have everything you want, but not all at the same time. Okay, let me repeat that. Someone write that in the chat. You can have everything that you want as a woman, but not at the same time. And again, these are not her words. This is just what I heard. And I was like, okay, so I can have a career, I can have hobbies, I can have friends, I can have money, and I can have kids, but they're gonna, how they plug into my life is gonna be a little bit different depending on the season I'm in. Okay? So there might be some overlap, but I have to honor the season that I'm in. So the season of your 20s, I believe, and because this is the advice I would give my 18-year-old self, it's the advice that I would give my daughter, okay? I would say, you know, get your high school, get your college degree, and as you're graduating from college, this is what most Pakistani families do anyways, so it's not like that groundbreaking, but maybe someone needs to hear it. You start now thinking about marriage. Okay, so by the time you're 22, 23, your parents are already kind of like, you know, looking for you. You're now focused into that area. Because why? Because you don't want your brain to get so disbalanced with the westernized looking of success that you lose the neural pathways of the relationships. Remember, we talked about there's wonderful studies on this. I showed you the book. It's in my Amazon bookstore, linked in the description box in my Amazon store, that you have to almost look at your brain as having the capabilities to be wired for what is needed most in your current environment. So you could be wired for capitalist success and that only. There's nothing wrong with that. I run a business. This is my third business, but if my brain was only wired for that, that means I can be a kick-ass, bad bitch, number one, top pursuing woman, career woman, which I am, right? Top 1% earner in the United States. And actually I'm top 1% within the top 1%. So it's crazy, right? But if I wasn't at the same time keeping the neural pathways that are wired for relationships, I would now be someone that was not able to be in relationships. Okay? That would be like if the weird example that's coming to me is like when you're on a ship, like you're on a cruise and then you suddenly can't walk when you get off, like you have to learn how to walk again, right? Or if you trained yourself to only look from one eye, the other eye would get lazy, right? It wouldn't know how to function. You'd be off. So when I highly believe in education, I am obsessed with education. You guys know that. In fact, I wasn't going to share this, but I'm going back to school. Like I'm obsessed with it, like obsessed. I love learning. I love growing, right? However, I take time to balance. So the average Western woman goes to university, then goes to corporate, and then goes for her higher education degree. Now she's like becoming so set in her neural pathways, in the masculine ways, in the non-relationship wired ways, that she's not only losing the rubber band time, but now by the time she's like 28, 30, 31, she's like, oh no, I gotta be in relationships. She doesn't have the neural pathways. She doesn't have the neural pathways to flirt, to attract, to be a wife, to nurture, to be a mother. Like she's lost her mamta. She's lost that. Those neural pathways fall apart. Just because they're natural doesn't mean that those neural pathways don't fall away when you're not using them. So what I would advise my daughter is that once you get your university degree, back to relationship. We're already doing relationship in the family setting, right? So relationship, university, okay? Now we're focused on the relationship, okay? Does this mean that my daughter is never allowed to have a career? Of course not. She is. Is that the best time to do it? No, not as a woman, it's not. In my humble opinion, it is not the best time, okay? So that's the best time to get your relationship set. Don't let those neural pathways go so far into the capitalist American male-dominated success that you lose the neural pathways for relationships. So now that you've got that, have your babies. Get your marriage, have your babies, and whatever you do, spend the first 3 years with your babies. My biggest regret, like I don't have very many regrets in life. The only one like biggest regret of my life is the fact that I didn't get to bond with Armaan those first 4 years the way I got to do with my other 2 kids. So babies are born to bond with 1 or 2 consistent caregivers repeatedly. So it's the same ones. And putting them in daycare or nannies, like I was lucky that my parents and my siblings picked up a lot of slack, and I was a single mom, like I had gone through a divorce when I was pregnant, so like they helped out a lot. So he still had that, but he was in daycare for like 2 months. That was a freaking disaster. I took them out. But daycares were meant to be a last resort. They were never supposed to be normalized. The last few people that wrote books on this topic got canceled and ran away and are hidden somewhere doing other stuff. So I don't want to say too much about that. I'll tell you the reason why. Hopefully they're not going to come after me, but I can play the religion and culture card. I'm gonna say, are you saying that I'm not allowed to voice my cultural opinions? Okay, anyways, so here's the reason why. This is in my book, so I don't know if it's gonna stay in my book, but I put it in my book, and then I was like, should I delete this? Because the last few people that said it had dire consequences. Nations where there is cheap, educated, cheap workforce available, that doesn't have a family, doesn't have anyone to go home to, doesn't have sick children at home, or if they have children, you can throw them somewhere, call it socialization, thrive. So this is probably the part that will get me in trouble, but I don't know if I should say it or keep it for private. I was having a conversation with one of my students, the same one I'm telling you, and she was like, create a separate place where you can say things. Please don't censor yourself. Yeah, I don't want to censor myself, but the last few people that came out against this do not exist anymore. So, I mean, they're hidden somewhere probably, but their careers were taken down. I don't care so much about the career, you guys know that. But okay, let me just say it. Women, single women, educated single women are the cheapest form of labor. Educated single women are the cheapest form of labor. You can easily manipulate them. You can go rah feminist rights, like you know, you have eye candy at work. You don't have to pay them as much as you would have to pay their male counterparts. And as long as you can keep them single and childless by making them think it's their choice, they keep working for you. It's lower salaries. They don't really negotiate a lot of like benefits and things like men do. And they don't really have anyone to go home with because you convince them that relationships are bad. And they don't have any sick children or, family parties to go to. They can move anywhere that you want to move them. They can like relocate for work. I'm like sick to my stomach saying it. But like I'd be in jail if someone wanted to treat my daughter that way. Like I would be in jail if someone wanted to treat my daughter like some kind of commodity like that. Like I'm sick. I'm sick. I'm sick. I'm sick to my stomach. Maybe that's why God wanted me to have a daughter. So as a nation, we have been told that it is our right to not be in relationships and that children are difficult and parenting is hard so that we can be cheap labor. Like I feel sick to my stomach even saying it. And those of us that somehow escape and then like have a family, okay, and then we're trying to run the career thing, look at the signals that we're getting, right? Like that if you want to progress, if you want to break the glass ceiling, like you shouldn't have a man telling you what to do, and you should just feminize him and have him doing chores. And it's just it disgusts me. But what they're having us do is Your family is an inconvenience to corporations, to capitalism. It's an inconvenience. So they're okay with you being out of alignment with your natural DNA and evolutionary history so that you can be cheap labor somewhere. And that makes me sick to my stomach. I was listening to the stat the other day that people who are married are 90% wealthier. However, we've also been sold as women that like somehow being married is going to like jeopardize our wealth. My womb is literally on fire just telling you guys this. Like as a mother, this it outrages me. And I have 2 sons as well. It outrages me for them. Because anything that affects women affects everyone. It affects everyone. We're the heart and soul of society. So if you do happen to have a husband and kids, they have to come up with the plan for that. So daycare, which was supposed to be a last resort for people in really desperate situations who just did not have a spouse or any family member to help out, as a last resort, knowing that there's psychological damage and consequences for the babies in there, but it's either like you choose to feed your family or that, right? That's who it was for. But then what they started telling us is that kids need to be socialized. Kids under 3 do not need to be socialized. Let me tell you, I have child psychology, child development, child anthropology in my background. They do not. Their socialization comes from you, your family, not from some random strangers in daycare. It's not true. But if you speak against about this, people will shut you down and call it shaming. If you feel shame from what I'm saying, I just brushed against a wound that already existed, babe. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. But in my hopes of helping women that haven't made that decision yet, they're maybe not sure, I'm gonna just say it. And I'm putting myself out there, and I'm putting myself I'm putting my family's well-being at risk for even saying it. Because of some of the things that I've seen happen to other people. I don't even know if I'll keep this video, honestly. But I'm just telling you that there's so much more to the story. What I teach for you to be don't listen to me. Don't truth test everything that I'm saying, okay? My job isn't to stuff something else down your throat. We have enough people doing that. My hope is that I give you enough curiosity to at least drop down and say, hey, what do I really, really want? What do I really, really want? And here's another thing that I want to tell you. I don't know what freaking number I am at. I'm bad at numbering things, but you have been sold a lie that married women are unhappier, that children make us fat and unhappy. There's articles out there. Bullshit. They want you to stay single, addicted, sick, on medications, so you can be cheap workforce that they can manipulate. It's all bullshit. How can something that you have evolved to do through millions of years make you suddenly sick or unhappy? It doesn't make any sense. That would be like Cheetos coming out with a slogan saying, Cheetos is supposed to make me healthy. I'm sorry, where did that exist in nature? I'm open to learning. Like I just mentioned, I'm going back to school, like always open to learning. I'm embarrassed to admit this. I've read 20 books in the last week. Like I'm crazy. I'm psychotic. I love learning. I'm psycho, okay? I'm open to learning, okay? I would say Cheetos. Please show me the closest resemblance of this found in nature. And we don't have anywhere in nature saying that marriage makes us unhappy, sad, sick, or miserable. That makes no sense. The entire human race would have died off. We would be extinct. And I'm here to tell you now, families are becoming an endangered species. And therefore, we are not far before we make headlines as being an extinct species. my family is, we are obsessed with, oh my God, have you guys seen Madagascar, the movie? Yes, the animated movie. So my family is obsessed with that series, and we're obsessed with King Julian, Maurice, and Mort. And we watch the Netflix every evening. We have a tradition. This is so crazy. Every evening, right before bed, like this is our bedtime story. I'm embarrassed to admit, but like every night we're in our pajamas. Like this is after we come back from our walk and everything. We all cuddle in our big bed, and we watch one episode of King Julian on Netflix every night. And so when we first started, we were like, is Fusa a real animal? Like, does this exist? We thought they just made it up. And we looked it up, and Fusas are it's a real animal, right? It's a real thing. So we looked it up, and when we looked it up, we realized they were an endangered species. And I don't know what I was thinking, but it just came out of my mouth. I was like us. And my kids were like, we're endangered? I'm like, kind of, we are. We're about to be, if this is how we keep going. So you have a lot of limiting beliefs. Let me rephrase that. You have been sold a lot of limiting beliefs on how difficult relationships are going to be, and how your freedom, this freedom that Hugh Hefner fought in your right, is going to be taken away. If that isn't shady, I don't know what the F is, right? All of this freedom that, all these Playboy men fought for us for, oh my God, we're gonna lose this freedom to just have sex with any man we want. You've been sold some lies. And the only way to discover the truth for yourself is the same thing I say to my kids. Don't listen to mama, drop in and see how this feels. Does this feel like a lie or a truth in your knowing and your being? Does this feel like a truth or a lie? So something that you have evolved through millions of years is suddenly shown in one generation, maybe two, it became bad, it's hurting you, and yet all the women that are choosing that lifestyle, like big portions of them, they claim they're so happy, are heavily addicted to wine. So it's becoming a whole thing, and are on antidepressants. Like I want to tell this story so bad. I have to be very careful because I never want to out anyone or make anyone feel like it's their story. So let me see if I can twist this enough to tell you the story. Of course, I would never say anybody's name. And this is not just one place, but it just recently happened again. And I was like, I've got to tell the girls this. In the last 5 years that I started this business, I have joined many masterminds and groups, and I'm always sort of disappointed when I join them. And recently, gosh, I shouldn't say recently. Okay, so I already said it. Okay, so I joined this, I'm starting this new thing in my business that I haven't announced yet. You guys are gonna love it, don't worry, you're gonna love it. And this is an area that I don't have any comfort level in because it's new, I've never freaking done it before. And second guessing myself and having sort of like imposter syndrome, I made this decision to join this mastermind where this thing was being taught. I'm trying not to out it because I don't want anyone to discover what it is. There's only so many people that teach this, so I'm trying to be careful, sorry. And we were in the call, and it's a lot of boss bitches in there, obviously, as is in all these masterminds. And all of them, not 80% of them, not 90% of them, all of them. I was the only, I actually didn't go. So we were all supposed to go. I was embarrassed to go because I was the only one married and like not on medication and not suffering from any mental illness. So I didn't go. So they all went one by one. Okay, so these are all women in their 40s and 50s and 60s, mostly 40s, some 50s, some 60s. All of them, other than me who didn't go, I was too embarrassed, divorced, recently divorced. All of them mentioned wine at least once. All of them mentioned at least one medication or one mental health issue that they're battling with, followed by they're a coach. They're a life coach for women. I don't know if this is bad to say. I'm sorry. I don't mean to hurt anyone's feelings. But like, I felt really odd one out from there. I don't even feel, I had a conversation about this with my husband, a very honest and open conversation. And he was so worked up that he was like, he had a lot to say, which I will not repeat. I'll spare you guys. Immigrants can be very politically incorrect. And it's the blind leading the blind. All of them mentioned being in toxic relationships with narcissist husbands. How can we all of us, have toxic narcissist husbands? Have, like, all of us? Like the stats just don't make sense. The numbers just don't add up. We're just like running the script. They were all coming as like, yay, we're celebrating that we're divorced and stuff. None of them looked radiant. And, you know, I don't want to judge anyone's happiness, but you can tell when someone's really truly happy from the inside. There is a glow and a radiance that they have. They have a level of, like, human beings are experts at reading energy. Experts. And none of these people looked happy. They looked unwell. Physically, psychologically, some of them couldn't stop talking really fast, anxious, on medication, which they volunteered that information. And the thing that I was sharing with my husband, I said, the host never asked about it. She said a very specific question about this business thing that we're about to do. And they just volunteered all of this information. These are the women that we are looking at as role models while we're being told that marriage is bad and it's hard and all this. There's toxic people out there and everyone's going to take your money and everyone's a narcissist and babies are going to ruin your life and just focus on your career. That's what's happening. So I'll leave it at that. I do think there's going to be a part 2. I didn't finish everything I had on my list. But you can have it all. I have it all. But I didn't have it all at once. So when I married Irfan, I became a stay-at-home mom. And I spent 9 years just having my babies, being with my babies, cuddling with my babies, right? And the only kind of like hobby thing I had going on at that time was my YouTube channel. Like I was a stay-at-home mom. Like, I posted when I felt like it. It wasn't a business. It was just me sharing. I bought this today. I did this. Here's a Louis Vuitton unboxing. I was just sharing. But that wasn't the season of life where I'm suddenly going to be like worried about like having it all. Because at that time, that was my all. Being, a nurturing wife and mom was my all at the time. And then I got to have other phases of my life. Like I'm having more seasons. Like I'm in this season now. And so don't sacrifice the season that is time bound with the rubber band thing that we talked about for this other season that you get to have anyways. Like you get to have it. I'm never going to say that you don't get to have it, but design your life, your blueprint, keeping in touch with your Homo sapien blueprint. Don't stretch the rubber band in a way that just snaps, girl. Don't do it. There's consequences to that. I want you to be well. I want you to do everything at a time where it makes sense and so you're thriving. Like when we have babies at the age that our body was designed to have babies, what if there's some weird unknown, my culture talks about this stuff all the time, so it's not like it's not unknown to me, but it hasn't been, there aren't languages in the English, there aren't words in the English language that describe some of the things, so it's harder to explain. If your culture doesn't have words for certain things, you don't have that thing often in your culture. So I understand it because my culture has words for this stuff, but in my culture, it is believed, and again, goes back to our evolutionary history, it matches, that when a woman doesn't go through pregnancy and childbirth, and obviously some people can't. Like, there's only so many things you can control, right? If you can't, you can't. But when we don't go through a certain plan, on top of it, oh my God, don't even get me started on birth control pills. Oh my God, I took them once, I became psychotic. Like, oh my God, my husband was like, I understand why this is called birth control, because no one's gonna want to have sex with you if you're acting like that. Like, it just freaking, like he thought it was sugar pills and it just makes you crazy and then no one wants you. That's how what it did to me. I was on it like, I think 2 weeks, and then it was like, we're never doing this again. So they're messing with our mind, they're messing with our energy, they're messing with our hormones. We've been sold all these things, and again, sorry to bring up Hugh Hefner again, but he was at the forefront. It just disturbs me. Like, it was at the forefront for a lot of this stuff becoming available to women. Isn't that disturbing? Why are you so interested in me taking birth control? Yeah. So you are a part of a species that behaves a certain way. If you are unwell, if you're not happy, go to that blueprint first. Just like if you took your dog to the vet, they're gonna be like, okay, what changed in their environment? What did they eat? Okay, treat yourself almost like an animal and be like, okay, what did my environment change so drastically that my rubber band snapped? How long have I freaking been talking for? Gosh. Okay, I'm gonna shut up now and see what you guys are saying. Okay. I think I have to scroll up a little bit. Let me scroll up. Where did I stop? Okay, I'm gonna go back up. This reminds me of your video, the destruction of the family unit, and on your other channel, such a needed message for women. Yes, I don't know why I ended up streaming that on my other channel, which isn't about, I should have put it here. Maybe I'll take it down from there and put it here. You can have everything you want, but not at the same time, right? Like, for example, if your 12-year-old came to you and she wanted to do something that is not appropriate for 12-year-olds, like that's something they're supposed to do at 25, let's say. You would say you're allowed to do that, but that comes at a later point in your life, right? So you don't have to do everything now. Like, look at your life as like this 100-year journey, okay? 85, whatever the lifespan. I like to say 100 because let's just follow the blue zones. You get to have a 100-year journey. You're gonna go through a lot of seasons, especially as a woman. Men too, I've talked about this, right? But especially as a woman, you're gonna want to honor your DNA, your hormones, your brain at different points. And even Dr. Laura used to talk about this, that she didn't start writing her books until her son was a certain age. And then she would write after he would go to bed or when he was at school. So, like honoring the season of life that you're in. Yes, I've had to rebuild those pathways. Yes, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyone can rebuild. I don't know why people get so triggered when I talk about that, as if it's like your brain is doomed. No, it just means that maybe you didn't drive for a long time and you're uncomfortable driving. Drive, and then you'll get used to it. Please don't censor yourself. Women need this information now more than ever. Thank you, babe. Educated single women are the cheapest form of labor. Absolutely. They're the cheapest form of knowledge workers. Cheapest form of knowledge workers. You're totally speaking facts. Thank you, S. I just had a talk with myself that I would look for marriage after building my business and a grad degree. So thank you for this message. You can have those things, and I want you to have those things. Can I share a very honest thing that I'm going through right now, actually, which I didn't think I wanted to share, but I'll share it right. I think it will help you. Notice that I don't share unless I really feel like it will be helpful. That is such a weird thing that my dad had pointed out in me. So this will be helpful. So when I went to university, my dad had kind of convinced me that I was going to be an attorney. He was supposed to be an attorney and he let down his father, so I thought he was kind of trying to live that through me. So I was like, okay, Dad, I can be an attorney. But when I went to university and I saw the degree options, I literally started drooling. Like there were just things like jumping out at me that my soul was like, Mina, take this, take this, take this. And so I was like, okay, what can I take that will still let my dad believe that I am going to law school after this, okay? So, oh my, I've never shared this with it. Parts of it I have, but this part I haven't, I don't think. Let me know if you've ever heard this, because I can't remember. So I was like, okay, I need to find a degree that lets him think, this is so savage, lets him think that I am going to law school while I like make up my mind. But then under this degree, I can still study the things that I want to study. So, which I wanted to study psychology, evolution, anthropology, like all of this like different stuff, okay? And so I talked to a couple people, and it seemed like communications was going to be like the umbrella thing that I could kind of say, you could go to law school with like a degree in communications, right? You just got to take the LSATs and everything. So I was like, okay, let's do that. So I took my communications degree, and then I was like, okay, well, what can I get away with putting in this degree, right? Like build my own degree. So I put in psychology, social sciences, anthropology, like all of this delicious stuff. And then there was all this other stuff that I wanted to study that didn't really fit in. And the other stuff that I wanted to study didn't really necessarily fit into any degree that I wanted, but I really, really wanted to study it. So I talked to a couple of my, I don't remember, my professor or a counselor or someone at school. And they said, well, you can take any courses you want to. They're just not going to count towards your degree. So then I really battled with that, because I'm like, well, then I'll know all the stuff, but I won't be able to say I have a PhD in this. And so I really battled with it. But ultimately, I was like, okay, I'm going to get my bachelor's in this, and this is what I can fit into it. And then I'm just going to study all this other stuff. And you can audit courses just for your own pleasure. So I was at Northwestern University. I don't think a lot of people know this, for 8 years. 8 years, not 4. 8 years. So because what I did is I did the thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to study all of those things as well, but they could fit into the umbrella of that degree. And then the things that wouldn't fit, I just studied them anyways. So I just paid there's an audit price where you can audit courses, but you don't like get graded at the end. It's just for your own pleasure, and they don't count towards like your degree or your GPA. So I took all of these courses together. If you combine them, there wouldn't really be a name for them, but they would be a degree, probably a PhD in something. But because they're such variety of topics that they can't really be like one PhD, because you have to go deep for that, right? I didn't know what the meaning of that was at the time. But then years later, when I started when this happened, I was like, oh my God, the universe had a plan the entire time. The universe had a plan the entire time. Because if I didn't study religion and predators and business ethics and law communication, like all of this random stuff that you would be like, Mina, none of this stuff goes together. But it does in what I do now. It is like perfect for what I do now, like perfect. And that's why when you guys reach out to me and you say, what's the name of your degree? What can I do to know everything that you know? I'm like, I kind of hacked the degree. And then I kept studying. Like you guys know, I'm a maniac when it comes to reading books. So I'm telling you the story because of this story. So after I finished that, I was getting ready to take the LSATs. And the week I was supposed to take my LSATs, the week before that, I met Armaan. And one of his deal breakers was he's like, I freaking hate attorneys. And like, let me know right now if that's what you're going to be pursuing. And I didn't really want to go to law school. Like I had been stalling my dad forever, like forever. So I told my dad that it was because of Armaan, kind of like we call it like shooting the gun from someone else's shoulder, but I didn't want to do it. So then after I married Irfan, I told him, I was telling my father-in-law, actually. My father-in-law has a PhD, my mother-in-law super educated, master's. And I was like, my next thing was supposed to be to go back to school, and I want to get either a master's or a PhD or something, right? And so my father-in-law was like, absolutely, like, Irfan's never gonna stop you. Like, you have my blessings, go and do it. So every time I was try to go into it, well, first, like, I started having babies, but then every time, like in between babies, I encountered the same problem. I'm having that problem right now. The problem that I keep encountering is that what I want to study doesn't fit inside the parameters of a degree. I'm having the same issue again. I've done this at least 8 times in the last 15 years, where I will start going into that rabbit hole and start like going down the loop of like, there's gotta be a degree that fits in. There's always things in there that I don't wanna study, and they're missing things that I wanna add that don't fit in that parameters. So right before, 5 minutes before I came on this live stream, that's probably why it's coming up, it's fresh. I wrote down in my journal, I was like, you know what? You're gonna do it again. You're gonna make up your own degree. And then I wrote, when I write that, what comes up? And what came up with, then I'm not gonna be able to say that I have this degree and that degree. And I was like, what's more important? For you to know the information, embody the information, have fun with the information, be able to teach from the information, or be able to say that you have a PhD in something that you didn't actually want to study. So I haven't answered that yet because I had to come on here, but I think I know the answer. I think I know the answer. And I think doing it my way, I think the bigger answer is that doing it my way will keep my relationship right brain part, that part intact, because I'm gonna do it from a place of joy, whatever I feel like studying. And so I'm about to get on the phone with one of the universities that does have a plan that's closest to it, that I would want. I would have to tweak some things, get on the call with them and be like, hey, listen up. I want to create my own degree, and this is what I'm gonna do. Is that okay? So let's see. You do not know how much this story helped me. Oh my God. Oh, I'm so glad. I wasn't going to share that because it just, I don't know, it's weird. I've always been a rebel with the cause. Even when I thought I didn't have a plan, like every time my dad or someone would ask me like, what are you studying? Like I would like tense up and like make up a story about like how you have to study communications to get into law school in the United States, like all the stuff. But I was like studying all these things. Like, I didn't even tell my parents I spent a whole year studying serial killers and predators and rapists and stuff. Like how am I gonna like it's, I guess I could have told them that you have to learn that for law school, but it makes sense with what I do now, right? Like I wouldn't be able to help women with what I do if I didn't understand predators. So God had a plan, even though it didn't make sense. And so sometimes when I see people saying, oh, I have a PhD, there's a part of me that's like, oh, I have a PhD too, but not really, because I have the equivalent of the time spent studying, but it wasn't like zooming in into this one thing. And once I had discussed this with Irfan, I said that I feel like, did I make the right choice? Like by not just sucking it up and just getting the degree that was being offered. And he said, no, because instead of, you're not the kind of person that goes really deep into one thing at the expense of everything else. It's like what you teach and what you bring to the table for these people, for your students, is the fact that you have such a wide and deep understanding. So if I had just become an expert in this like one very rigid kind of thing, I don't know if I could have been of service in the way that I'm at service now. Like when I spend time studying religion at university, that didn't match my degree. There's only so many electives you can like count, right? So, but being able to just study it anyways and just trusting that there was some pleasure coming from it. It was a feminine thing to do, that just studying for the pleasure of it. And now it makes sense. And now it makes sense. Thank you for the super chat, Courtney. I appreciate you. I'm just looking at some of these older messages that I missed. Elsa said, can you please help women who have missed and played wrong season of life, such as me, who found you in her late 30s and want to have a second chance? Thank you so much for You are a true woman. Thank you, babe. The first thing I would say, Elsa, is honoring that it is what it is, like accepting it. What we've done is we've created a culture where we're so afraid of offending the women that have missed the boat or whatever we want to call it, but then we can't speak to the other women. So understanding that our children still need this information and our younger sisters still need this information, and honoring that and saying, okay, I'm in a different season now. That's okay. I have this information now, and I'm glad that it's available for this generation, right? The newer generation, the younger generation. For you, the first thing I would say is like acceptance, because what I've seen in, and I have the pleasure of coaching some of the most successful women in the world. I'm gonna try to tell the story without outing this person. When I was 2 years into my coaching business, I got an email from someone saying, I'm so-and-so's assistant. She wants to work with you. How do we proceed? This was my first celebrity client. At first, I thought it was a joke. So I was very confused. I was like, is this kind of like a spam message? Really confused about it. And I'm like, because I knew who that person was. She's a celebrity, like a Hollywood celebrity. And I'm like, this can't be true. Why would she be watching my channel? Like, you know, who am I? This little person, right? So I Googled it, and I, through some digging in, realized that this person was this person's assistant. This was the first time. This happened to me several times after that, but I'm telling you the story of the first time it happened. And so I'm like, here's my payment link, like super excited, a little embarrassed because I was like not charging a lot of money at that time. You know how you work up a little bit, right? And I'm like, oh my God, she's gonna think I'm such a peasant. Like, but I didn't want to give her, like, it would be out of integrity for me to give her a different price. So I gave her that price, but then raised my prices afterwards because I'm like, I'm working with celebrities now. Mina's made it, okay? So anyway, so I sent her that link, her assistant, they paid. And like the day that she's supposed to come up, I'm like, oh my God, should I have my makeup professionally done, right? Like I'm like anxious, like, oh my God, like, oh, like, right? So I show up and I'm thinking, is she gonna turn her video on Zoom? Like, so she turns her video on and I'm just like, oh, like I get to see her and I see her, I'm looking at her house in the back and fabulous. And she paid for a 1-hour session. We talked for 6 hours. Let me rephrase that. She talked for 6 hours, nonstop, with no breath. And I was like sweating, thinking, when am I gonna get a word in? What if she thinks I didn't even coach her? I didn't get to say anything. I couldn't ask her anything. A few times I tried to interrupt. It was like I did not exist. Like, I don't know if she knew I was even on the call. She was like looking at me, I think on Zoom. This woman is, I mean, her net worth probably at the time was like 40 million. I think I had Googled her at the time, sorry. Like very successful A-list celebrity. And at the end, she was like, is that it? And I think it was at like the 6 hour mark. And I didn't know what to say because like I had to go. Like I literally just had to like go, like leave, like to tend to, like my family knew that I was on a call with her. So it was like, they weren't gonna interrupt, but I'm sure they were like, what happened? Like, did she get, like, what happened to me now, right? So anyways, I had a newfound understanding of success at that point. She had every success, masculine success, and she was just so anxious, so unhappy. She was on medications, just relationship after relationship, some of them very public, and that's why when I hear people saying, oh, their lives are fake and their relationships are fake, no, they're real people with real emotions and real hormones and real DNA, and they're struggling just like the rest of us because they've been sold the same damn script. The same message had been given to them. And she was in so much pain, over her relationships. And I remember at parts she would just keep saying, is this it for me? Is this it for me? Like, am I gonna make it? Women are evolved to be in relationships. We seek connection. So my biggest advice for you is to just, do what's best for you. Obviously, I'm giving you the stupid political correct bullshit answer again. But we've trained ourselves to say that, haven't we? Accept your DNA and be really honest with yourself. A lot of the women that I see, including the one in the groups that I just talked about, they're very visually unhappy. Like, they look unhappy. They look unwell. You know when you can just tell when someone just looks unhappy and unwell, but they're lying to themselves because they're selling it to themselves as female empowerment. I know they're just grasping at whatever they have. I'm not blaming them. But that creates a problem because then the younger generation looks at them and says, well, these are the coaches and these are the things. And no one's talking about DNA. No one's talking about hormones. No one's talking about our evolutionary ancestry. No one's talking about the fact that we possibly couldn't have evolved out of this in one generation. So I would say start your journey through acceptance of what is, of how we have evolved. And then, even if you don't choose to do that, you can not pull the rubber band in the other direction. So for example, if a woman decides, you know what, we are evolved to be in relationships and have babies and get married, but I don't want to, okay? She's stretching the rubber band in that direction. However, if she's also now drinking alcohol and also on medications and also eating like shit and also not working out, we've really pulled that rubber band in many directions, haven't we? What is going to happen now will be much worse than if she said, you know what, I'm really pushing it here with this evolution thing. However, to keep myself healthy, I'm going to eat right, sleep well, stay away from any drugs or alcohol. I'm going to form connections in this way. I'm going to give volunteer here, make close relationships here, spend time in nursing homes or with my nieces and nephews, and I'm going to use my mamta in other places. You can do that. Now you are probably a lot healthier than a lot of people because you're honest and you're being real and you are not lying to yourself and then therefore numbing yourself by stretching the rubber band in all the directions. Let me know if this is helpful. It's my only intention is to be helpful. I only speak to be helpful. Trust me, I don't want anything to do with being here for any other reason. You're a life coach, so this includes everything. Yes, however, I think that life coaches are not equipped to deal with every type of patient or client, I should say, that comes through. Some people are actually patients, not clients. And it takes a lot of integrity to say no, especially for new life coaches that need the money. But sometimes you have to say no and refer them. So I now have a place to refer my basic babes. And I mean this with the utmost love because I've been there and I've needed therapy and I've had those wounds. But Sadia Psychology does those sessions. So I'm so happy that I can refer you to someone that I can trust. You have to be careful with referring sometimes because, you know, I've had so much stuff with this. Some of you guys don't know, but when years ago, when I started this business, I was getting excited with like other YouTubers and people I was meeting, and I referred a few people, like my clients or my followers, because the thing with my audience is that it's a very loyal audience. Even the vice president of Thinkific, the platform that we use, he says that this is the most loyal and like committed audience that he's ever seen. And remember, he works with like hundreds of thousands of creators. So my like 100,000 people following me, or even 10,000 people following me, are worth way more than 1,000,000 people following someone else, because of the community aspect that we've created here. So when I referred people, their instinct was like, I even had, this should have been a red flag. I had some people saying, Mina, I know her and I found her really weird, but if you're recommending her, she must be good. I'll give her a second chance. And a whole bunch of people went and signed up with people that I had recommended, and a couple of those people turned out to be level 10 cray. So I went into hiding for a while, and I was like, okay, I'm not recommending any books. I'm not recommending other coaches. Like I like almost had like this wound come up of like, oh my God, I don't want to cause any harm to anyone. I'm not recommending anyone. Like I can just trust myself. Again, the self-aware Barbie came in. But recently, I have been doing some inner work around that, and I'm trusting that when I recommend, that you are still gonna go and do your due diligence and see if that person is aligned with you. I have only known about Sadia's work for 3 days. I've watched maybe 8 of her videos. And because I understand the Pakistani culture, and I know that Pakistani culture, like people are very similar in our culture, there's less differences and less variation because the values are so similar. I feel very confident because of her expertise and her education, and also because she's Pakistani, in recommending her, because in Pakistani culture, there's very little variation between people. I know this sounds really weird, but the values really glue us together. I'm probably like one of the odd ones out because I'm not so glued to the religion part. So I can recommend her. But of course, do your research, see if you align. So yeah, she does sessions. Yes, Mina, that was helpful. I think I feel that energy. Okay, awesome. So this seems like something we can do before we manifested the marriage too, like volunteering and everything. Yes, here's why I'm talking about volunteering. You want to test yourself in situations where you're giving to someone else. How do you feel after that? If you give and you feel depleted, you may not be wired for relationships. If you go and volunteer and do things and you feel really good and you feel like energized by that, you're wired for relationships. And so that's a test. And also you can see what comes up. Why do you feel depleted? What came up? You know, do you feel like you can't trust people? Do you feel like people take advantage of you, you know? And I think my new book that's coming out will really help in this department, because that book is actually written for people that are not wired for relationships, and then it's teaching you how to set boundaries so that you can be wired for relationships. So that's the topic. Oh my God, I have to tell you guys. So okay, so the mock-up came up for the cover, and I immediately knew it. Like I thought it was gonna come back and she's gonna give me these options and I'm gonna be like, oh, I can't decide. But instantly when it came, I was like, it's that one. And then I showed my husband, he was like, that one. And I showed my kids, they were like, that one. And then I showed my team, they were like, that one. So I am gonna show it and share it in channels in my book club that we're co-creating and channeling and everything. Just to see if everyone can guess it, but I know which cover we're gonna have, and it's so divine. I just love it. It's just, oh my God. Like, I think I started having a little bit of a container issue after I saw it, honestly, because I had like an hour where I was like second guessing the book and like wanted to delete some chapters, and I was like, who am I to write this? I got over it within an hour, but I'm like, Mina, you're having a container issue because this cover is fabulous, okay? Calm down, do not delete anything. I'm not sure Sadia recommends dating multiple men at a time. So that's the bit that you're gonna, so you have to take, she's not me and I'm not her, but we come from a similar culture and we've studied similar things. It's also unclear whether she's married or not. She does talk about having a partner. So like I said, that's why I'm very nervous about recommending people. However, you can take parts from me and you can take the therapy part from her, if that makes sense. So not everyone has to be saying all the things. You can take things from different parts and then create a beautiful template for you. She caters more to the self-aware, I'm sorry, the basic babe and the basic boy category. So just so you guys know, in my work, that's the category that she caters to. And maybe a little bit of an overlap with the self-aware Barbie, but mainly the basic babe. And I don't cater to that. So I think that it's good to have a place to send someone. She just came up on my feed. You know, they're listening. I feel like someone's always listening. It's so weird. It's so weird. It's like they're always listening. Yes. All right, babes. Oh my God, this has been like the longest live stream ever. Happy weekend. Today's Friday, right? Yes, happy weekend. I'm gonna go have some fun with my family. I love you guys, and I hope this was useful. For those of you guys watching in the replay, let us know in the comments what was the key takeaways. What bit did you like? Please comment, give this a thumbs up, and share it. The more people that see this content, the more people we can help. I've always shied away from too much publicity, too much awareness, too much growth, but I also understand that people need this message. So if you can help by leaving us a comment, subscribing, giving it a thumbs up, and maybe sending it to someone or sharing it on your social media, I would really greatly appreciate it. Also, it gives me the confidence to keep doing this kind of content. So I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.